Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for the one and only Steef-Jan Wiggers.
We didn't rehearse this. And give it up for Roland Meertens. There you go. Okay.
All right, thank you. Hey, everybody, welcome to Beyond Code, building a personal brand to boost your career. Let's start with a quick about you. So what we are hoping, or what we generally see at QCon conferences, is that people attend who are aspiring a great career in tech. They're smart people, they're really ambitious. And sometimes people come to me and they say, I'm excited to do something extra besides work. Yep. What should I do? Because people want to optimize their effort to actually gain something back. There's so many options where you can spend either your spare time or your time at work to just improve yourself, improve your personal brand, improve the things you're working on. And often people ask people like us, like, what experience do you have? What did you try? What are you doing on LinkedIn? What are you doing in GitHub? So yeah, I hope that you're here to hear some experiences from others, and that is what you're getting from us. So about us, oh yeah, we have a clicker. Cool.
Yeah.
So I'm Roland Meertens. I'm a tech lead at Wave. We are a company which builds self-driving cars. We're hiring. We have an office here in the Bay Area. But besides that, I'm an InfoQ editor and host of the Generally AI podcast, which is an InfoQ podcast. Anthony is sitting over there. He's also a host. Yeah.
Yeah, since it's a sponsor track, you will hear a lot of InfoQ stuff. I myself, besides being an InfoQ editor, am what's called an integration architect. So I do a lot of things with connecting systems. So System A talks to System B, and I predominantly do this in Microsoft technology, but you can also leverage technologies outside of Microsoft connecting systems. So that's what I do. And at InfoQ, I'm the lead editor for Cloud News. So that's kind of what my day-to-day thing is, together with my work at InfoQ. So we're both Dutch, so hence the double Dutch. Going Dutch, we can do tons of jokes. We did bring some of our treats from Holland, so we did, if you want to come up later on and you want to try out one of our, distinctive traits, which is called a stroopwafel, then feel free to come up and take them. So we brought them especially for you as well.
Cool. Yeah, so what we're going to do today is talk about our experience with the following list, the social media, either LinkedIn or Twitter, X, whatever, blog posts and personal websites, and what kind of work we did there. One of us is going to talk about what it is to be a Microsoft Most Valuable Professional. We're also talking about what kind of gains you can get in helping others online, be it Stack Overflow, Reddit, etc. Also talking about online courses and publishing on GitHub. And then the second part we do is talking about contributing to InfoQ. As we already said, we're both InfoQ editors, so we're going to talk about how you can write InfoQ articles, InfoQ news, podcasts, contribute to QCon, the conference where you are at right now. Yeah, let's just get started with social media. In terms of social media, I personally am mostly active on LinkedIn. And I think the tips here, so if we talk about LinkedIn, I'm not super active anymore on Twitter or Instagram or anything else. I mostly just settled on LinkedIn. And overall, social media is a bit of your bread and butter if you're trying to create a personal brand. Very often when you create content, you want other people to read it. You want to get a bit of a following of people who like your content and who engage with whatever you make. And then these social media platforms are really useful. Especially LinkedIn, I think, is very good for professional connections. And the one thing, or my tips for LinkedIn, is that LinkedIn has a lot of boring content and a lot of people who are sharing impersonal clickbaity updates. So in terms of boring content, I don't want to insult anyone who just got their Scrum Master certificate, but people keep posting that stuff and it keeps popping up in my feed. And what I notice is that generally developers keep scrolling LinkedIn because they want to find some interesting content. And if you post something which relates to you as a person, this content can really thrive. that's actually frustrating because sometimes you share interesting, like professional insights, and then nobody clicks it because it's not personalized enough. At least that's something which I know. And that's also immediately my tip for LinkedIn. Try to make something personal. Overall, in my career, I met a lot of interesting people through LinkedIn. So sometimes people recognize me from posts I did, and sometimes you meet people who you chatted with or who engaged with your content before. That can be quite a fun experience. So I can definitely recommend getting a LinkedIn profile and being relatively active there. What about you?
Yeah, I agree. LinkedIn is probably the most predominantly platform that I use. Twitter, Instagram, you potentially could relate to what you posted online, but in general, I would say LinkedIn. I'm not sure who uses LinkedIn. Probably all of you, putting out kind of your resume or your CV. Anyone else doing anything with LinkedIn, like doing posts or by raise of hands, or just in general, just use it for your personal profile? Yeah, I reckon you would do that. Twitter, from an InfoQ standpoint, we usually, when we post out articles, we leverage the platform, but it's not just getting the notification out. But that's about it. Instagram, we're not using that much. Snap, Facebook a little bit. TikTok is not really going to work unless you're really good at cooking or other stuff. And Instagram, if you're really like looking pretty, if you're pretty, right, then you're just building and doing like that. So yeah, potentially if you're an influencer, then Instagram could work. But yeah, for professional standpoint, I think, LinkedIn is the best platform so far using it. So.
Yeah, especially with Twitter, I always noticed, or I always had the feeling that if you start there and you already have a great group of friends and already have a bit of a following, then you maybe get people who engage with your content. It's less easy to build up because there's so many people sharing things. And nowadays you can have longer content, but in the past it used to be quite short. For blog posts and personal websites, in my life, I've made quite a bit of blog posts for projects I did in my spare time. I've also ran a personal website. One thing I noticed here is that there's in terms of trade-off, it is really easy to set up an account on a blogging website, for example, Medium. I found it harder to get dedicated readers. So it's not that easy to get a bit of a following. It's not that easy to get to the front page. It's easy to write something. It's harder to actually get the readership. I also noticed that recently there's a lot of noise from low effort blog posts. Maybe we're contributing to this by giving a talk like this. But it seems that there are way more people out there who now want to show off their professionalism, but they do so in a way where I'm like, yeah, okay, I have seen another, like, yes, great, you wrote another tutorial on how to do your first project in TensorFlow, but doesn't really add a lot. And the rise of generative AI, I think, has made that people are reading blog posts less, but also makes that people automatically generate more, like yet another of the same article. So my tip here is really try to focus on quality content, write about something which you specifically know a lot about, and maybe then you get less readers, but you get more dedicated readers. Another tip here from my side is that some companies support blogging on their Medium account. So for example, when I was at Bambotech, they had a Bambotech Medium account. So during my working hours, I only did this once, but I was allowed to write blog posts, and they would promote it, even give you a bit of a reward if you got enough readers. So this can be a nice way to not just have to spend your personal time, but use company time to share your knowledge and your ideas.
Yeah, well, same here. Like what you did, I've had a dedicated blog post for years when I was still doing BizTalk server, so that's an on-premise broker. These days, everything's in the cloud. But yeah, I had an extensive knowledge in that, so it got a lot of traction over the years. But at some point, I just dropped it and just moved on to doing different things in the community. But yeah, definitely create a blog. There's tons of platforms for it. I used Blogspot in the early days, but like what you're saying, Medium is even easier, and then you just put your content out of what stuff that you really know about, and that gave me a lot of momentum too, which I'm going to relate to later when we're talking about MVP ship. So
Yeah, one thing which people always ask me is, hey, should I use one of these blogging platforms or should I make my own personal website? Yeah, the answer is always depends. I personally have a personal website as well, pinchofintelligence.com. The one downside I see of blogging platforms, especially Medium, which I noticed, which I mentioned before, they started putting some articles behind the paywall. So sometimes I encounter content where I think, oh, I would really like to read this, or these people have solved exactly my problem. And then you need to be a Premium Plus member or something. That's of course a problem you don't have on a personal website. It's really tied to you. People might recognize your website, might recognize your style. Can be harder to set up, but things like GitHub Pages, WordPress, they make it really easy to create your own personalized website, create your own platform. The downside, the downside which I noticed myself is that as soon as another website picks up that you wrote something interesting, like as soon as you go to the top page, like front page of Hacker News, or some other website picks it up, your own website tends to go down. Yeah, at least that's something I noticed. Other problems I see is that it's hard to get dedicated readers because people have to really find your website. So you have to promote your own content, put it on Reddit, put it on your LinkedIn. But you have complete freedom of what you post and how often. So some platforms really promote that you have to put something out every week or only want you to write specific things. I really enjoy my personal website for side projects, which I think nobody else but me is interested in, and then it's a perfect medium. And it makes for a great personal portfolio. So very often if you go into an interview and people ask you, do you have experience with this, or can you tell me something about this? If you're able to point at either your personal website with past projects, or if you're able to point at a couple of blog posts which you made, then you really establish yourself as an expert. And I think that's way better than just answering, yes, I have experience with that. If you can say, yes, I have experience, take a look at these articles, I think it's better.
Yeah, it's always great to have your own content. So, then something about, I'm a Microsoft professional, MVP, who's aware of the MVP program. How many of you, this is something that Microsoft created, I think, almost like 30 years ago through the MSDN forums. So you basically similarly you have Oracle, you had an Oracle Ace, Java Champion, you got like AWS has something similar called AWS Heroes. So basically you stand out in the community. It makes you valuable of the stuff that you do for the community, presenting, writing blog posts and stuff. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're like super smart or anything. That usually tends to be the thing that people look up to you know everything. That's not the case. It's in the word value. Similar to AWS Heroes, Renato Losio is one of our InfoQ fellow editors, is in this case an AWS hero. But yeah, back in the day you had an Oracle Ace, you have a Java Champion, so it's just as a kind of a recognition from, in my case, Microsoft, that gives you, kind of this recognition, and I've had it over 15 years now, being active in the community. The other thing is, what also can stand out, besides I used to code a lot, now I'm doing more like architecture world, is at some point you get on stage. So that's different than coding, right? You can still do code while doing a demo, but hey, it's different. And it also can build up your career besides doing code. Early, for me, it was pretty hard to just stand here and talk because, when I was doing this, I was like, oh, this is scary. And, there's like 80, 100 people in the room. And I had to do this talk about BizTalk, and I was like, oh, I was pretty scared. But, 15 years down the line, today, currently, I stand out. There's no stage fright, anything. I can talk to you guys on any type of subject for hours if I necessarily need to. So I came over it. It is a bit of a barrier because you're confronting people. You could get stage fright, but in the end of the day, you'll get over it. And it really helps if someone can coach or mentor you. And do a talk where you're really comfortable with. Don't just pick a topic somewhere you're not familiar with, something that you've experienced with, and then just be on stage and talk about it. So this is one of the more recent pictures of me presenting in Stockholm, doing a talk about green IT, so which I had some experience with, and it was great doing it. So being on stage is another way of doing your thing. So and then you get something like Stack Overflow.
Yeah, so another thing I tried in the past is answering questions on Stack Overflow as a way to boost my career, boost my skills. I personally thought it was quite fun it's a fun challenge to try to find answers people are struggling with. I was doing this in the early days of TensorFlow, so there were maybe only like 3, 4, 5 people online who were answering like difficult questions about the platform. And it really helped me increase my own knowledge, because often people would ask questions online such as, oh, how does this actually work? And then you have to dive into, or like I challenged myself to dive into these topics, try to find out how it really works. And it really boosted my skills. The problem with fora is that sometimes there's a lot of low effort questions, just people going to Stack Overflow saying my code doesn't work. And I think that with the rise of code chatbots, there's no real incentive anymore for people to post there. I checked today if Stack Overflow still existed, and apparently it does, but I never go there anymore. Also, for some online fora, the community isn't always great, so it can be hard to really get adapted to what do they do, what do they want. Especially Stack Overflow, if you would find the perfect answer but would post a link in your answer, they would remove it. It's also harder to get recognition for yourself. So there's only, I don't know what who the most famous Stack Overflow answerers are. So sometimes you get some recognition inside the community because people start recognizing your style of answering and your profile picture. Also, fun fact, this is actually how InfoQ found me, because they reached out to the people who were actively answering questions about machine learning and were like, hey, do you want to write more for our community? So in that sense, it really helped me boost my career and my personal brand, I guess. But this can be harder if you're only answering a couple of questions. So you really have to be kind of go all in for people to recognize you, and it's more a driving function for yourself. Yeah. Are you helping others online?
Well, I did in the predecessors of Stack Overflow back in the day at MSDN forums, but yeah, that ran into the same difficulties you just mentioned. So back in the day when it went into those kind of difficulties, Stack Overflow took over and became more dominant and had better answers. But then, yeah, it evolved to what MSDN fora used to be, or back in the day you also had for Oracle forums where you could become Oracle Ace or Java. So those kind of forums were there for quite a bit, and yeah, Stack Overflow is more of the latest that you can leverage. But yeah, I definitely relate to the fact that back in the day when I was answering questions for BizDoc Server back in the day, I learned a lot about it too. So yeah, it definitely can help learning stuff as well.
Cool. The other option you have is to build an online course. So that is a good way to establish yourself as an expert. I had that people ask me in an interview on a scale of 1 to 10, where 10 is that you publish a course about it. How good are you in machine learning? And then you can just say, well, 10, I did this. I think in general, so I wrote one, or actually 2 online courses. I think in general it's good in the early days of a new framework, because then you can establish yourself as the expert in this framework. I personally went with a publisher, which I'm not going to name, but this helped a lot because they supported me in terms of that I just recorded all the videos and they would edit it and promote it and sell it, and you would get a cut of the shares. What I hated about this specific publisher is that they were a bit spray and pray, where I was a bit annoyed that in the same month that I released my TensorFlow course, there were like 5 other TensorFlow courses from the same publisher, where I thought, yeah, just take one good person, really coach them, really make it the best course you can, and then you have one good thing instead of, I don't know, five mediocre courses. You can get a bit of money here from this. That's nice because you get rewarded for your time. There is a big upwards potential. If you are the person who makes the course for the upcoming framework, then a lot of people will buy your course. But it's also a relatively large time investment, where it takes a long time to create something which really teaches people in an optimal way how some software worked.
Yeah, I tried it, but and I did some audition videos, but apparently I was a bit too boring and wasn't well prepared, so I kind of gave up. I did do a lot of internal courses at my company, so I did learn how to explain technology, but I never did like what you did, bring on an online course.
Yeah. Also, don't look at my course; it's very old. So the last thing we want to talk about is GitHub. So I think if you're an active contributor to a couple of repositories, you can establish your name strongly in one technology. I think this only helped me once when I was quite active for one framework, in this case for drones. But I feel that you can't really use GitHub to build a brand across a large audience. So the only people who will start recognizing you are the other people who are core contributors to that technology. So if you see jobs which require that technology and people recognize you, then it can be very strong. But then you really have to go all into one thing. And one thing I always find disappointing is that I was never able to skip a coding interview by showing them a GitHub repo. Whereas I think I did manage to skip like one or two interviews or like one or two interview sessions by just pointing them at my blog saying like, hey, look, I know a lot about AI, as you can see. And the other thing which I really didn't like about GitHub is that it's essentially work. So I'm very happy to code something in my spare time, but if people then start asking me to add tests or like refactor code, it's not what I enjoy.
No, it's not much I can add to it, so yeah. No.
Yeah, anyways, and then the one thing we are here for is InfoQ. So I don't know if you're all familiar with InfoQ. It's a website for senior software developers, architects, team leads. They publish a lot of articles. What we do at InfoQ is that I have been an editor since 2017. Initially, I started writing about one news article about machine learning per week. Nowadays, I mostly do podcasts. So that's because I enjoy talking about technology and interviewing people. I'm also a host of the Generally AI podcast together with Anthony. And I am always quite active in the AI machine learning trends report once a year. Steef-Jan, what do you do? You're way more active.
Yeah, well, I'm active too. I've been like you since 2017. Basically, some of my fellow MVP people worked at InfoQ. So one was Richard Seroder, and at some point he said, hey, you want to join? There were some editors leaving, and I was in training. It was a pretty tough training, I must say. But yeah, since then I've been mostly writing US items and reviewing articles. So a lot of articles around cloud-related technology. I predominantly, not like you're doing the AI. I'm doing the cloud stuff. So I'm into cloud news, and then it's mostly the big three hyperscalers, so Microsoft, AWS, and Google. And like you, we also have trend reports. So there's also other trend reports like architecture, but for us, it's the cloud and DevOps trend report we usually get out every year. So that's predominantly what I do. I like podcasts too, but I haven't really got into it yet. So maybe I'll do that too in the future. You never know.
Yeah, so in terms of when we were just thinking about what are the benefits of all these different approaches to boosting your career, I think there's some very big direct benefits to publishing for InfoQ. One is that you get a large audience. As I said before, whenever you post something on your own social media, you just have to hope that your friends like it, and from there you can kind of grow your audience. If you post something on Reddit or on Hacker News, like the Y Combinator news website, then you have to hope that other people give it upvotes. Can be quite disappointing if you create something and nobody reads it, or it's not even visible to anyone. With InfoQ, we know that if we post something, it is always immediately on the front page. I think this is a massive benefit. It's immediately available to an incredibly large audience. How many readers do we have nowadays, Daniel? Over 100 million views a month. That can be your content. Anyways, what I also really like is that you get feedback on what and how you write. So this can be quite intimidating at first, because the first couple of times you write an article, like a professor in English language will go over your article. Like, whew, I don't know, I'm not a native English speaker, but it helps a lot to just get feedback on what is a good way of writing, what's a bad way of writing. So for my own personal blogs, I only have one critical friend who just tells me what is wrong with my articles or why they're not gaining traction. It's kind of nice to have someone, like for example Daniel, who tells you if you do this and this, then then more people will like it, or this would be better. Yeah, it really improves your content. Other thing is that InfoQ pays you something for your content. I'm ashamed that I don't know how much because I always just use it to invest in like better podcasting setups. But you can get some return on investment for your time. I think generally people buy books. What do you buy?
Well, I just set up a new office space with some of the money, and there's other stuff that I used to do. So it definitely is rewarding, similar to like online courses and other stuff. So yeah, you get rewarded for your time in some way. But yeah, the other rewards would definitely be more traction and view on you as a person. So established, you get an established name out there. Front page. You can even attend conference like conferences. Even speaking at these conferences, even some of our fellow other editors speak as well. So we have Thomas Betts, who done an interesting talk in the past too about architecture. So yeah, we get involved in a lot of stuff as well with InfoQ. So it definitely helps establish your name too. Since we're talking about that in this topic, right? So.
Yeah, in terms of benefits for the conferences, by the way, the one thing you can do is go to other conferences, which are not InfoQ conferences, and then say, hey, I'm an editor at InfoQ, can I get a press pass? And for me, I always got a press pass. Yeah. Whenever I want to go to any cool conference. That also makes it way easier that you don't have to ask your work to sponsor going to a conference. You can just say, hey, I will go there. I think that if you've been with InfoQ for long enough, they even have a stipend for your hotel. So you can go to the conferences you want to, skipping your manager approval.
True.
What a win. There's also some indirect benefits. So this is something which is also true of some of the other things we talked about today. But you really have to understand what you write about for InfoQ. It's a website which is known to be written by senior software developers, by experts in the field. So if I'm writing an article and I'm not sure about what I'm writing down, I'm pretty sure I'm going to Google the heck out of that. So I will learn it that day, because then I can confidently write it down. So it really forces you to learn faster. Don't know if you have the same experience.
I have, yeah, definitely. You really have to know your stuff, or really like what you've written down, like learn fast and get into it. So.
Yeah, you also establish yourself as an expert in your field. So InfoQ isn't for everyone. It's not like anyone can publish there. You are a vetted person, which is maybe hard. Means it's harder to get into, but that also means that because there's this gatekeeping function. If you're in, you can confidently say that you're an expert in this field, which helps a lot when you put it on your CV or tell other people. And there's a large network.
That's true. Yeah, you meet a lot of people, fellow editors, speakers. Like even in this conference, you get in touch with them, and then of course there's some offline talks or get-togethers like speaker dinner where you can interact with these people. So yeah, you definitely get your name out. Because you're going to a lot of conferences, you've been viewed as an expert or as an InfoQ editor, you get a lot of more traction and people start recognizing you. So yeah, that definitely helps a lot too. So that's kind of a real cool indirect benefit as well, building up your network.
Now it's just two InfoQ people saying that they're pretty cool.
Well, it is.
You also get access to other people in the field, by the way. So sometimes you think, oh, this person is working on this and that framework. That would be extremely cool to talk with this person. And then you can reach out to them and say, hey, I'm this InfoQ editor. Can I like ask you a couple of questions? Do you want to have a call? Generally, people are very receptive of editors for large websites reaching out to them and making time for them. They might be less receptive to random people approaching them because they just think it's fun. We got a couple of photos of us at different events. So this is, I think, London last year?
Last year, probably, yeah. We were all kind of had to stand like this.
These are all InfoQ editors, by the way.
Yeah.
I just took a couple of random photos. So this is last year, San Francisco?
Yeah. No, so this is also London. So this is a larger group of editors. Some of are in the audience as well. So hey, it's even you and me.
Anyways, you can join this handsome group of people. This is a very old photo in London, I think, before the pandemic. We were all together in a small room. Especially Ben Linders is having a lot of fun in this photo. So how does InfoQ work? Generally, it's content written by software engineers, professionals, generally people who are leaders in their field. It's not professional writers, so sometimes people see that you have a press pass for a conference and they just assume that you don't know anything about technology. Maybe that's the only frustrating thing. There should be a knowledgeable press pass. Yeah. So all the people who are writing for InfoQ are knowledgeable in their field. yeah, you want to continue?
Yeah. So there's a lot of people writing, but there's a lot of people reading it too, I must say. So like you've already heard, like 1-2 million readers a month. So that's a pretty distinctive group of people that kind of read your content, so that's true.
People have full-time jobs in the industry, by the way.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
everyone who's, or like most people who are writing, are doing this as a side job between their normal work.
True. And there's some numbers here, so that's around 40 pieces of content, more or less, like news, lengthy articles, presentations, podcasts. There's even some electronic magazines, so there's curated content inside a magazine, and even books per month that's done. And then importantly, in that you've heard also before the keynote, there's also an InfoQ Software Architects newsletter, so even the QR code is up there as well. So if you're interested, you can take a picture of that as well.
Cool. Yeah, so in terms of writing for InfoQ, how can I join InfoQ? It must be what you're thinking right now.
This is our message.
Yeah, now we get to sponsored content. No, so InfoQ is always looking for editors, right now in particular for .NET, web dev, cloud editors. But everyone is welcome. I think we can't, like, they always want more people who can write interesting content. There is an editors at InfoQ email. Yeah, I'll tell you something more about that later. Do you want to tell something about the editorial position?
You go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, do it.
Yeah, so this is already something which was mentioned this morning, and something which will be mentioned a lot by Daniel tomorrow, and I don't want to steal his slides too much. But generally, InfoQ is focused on things which are like innovators, early adopters technology. So this is technology which is up and coming before everybody picks it up. Which really vibes with what I like to write about and what I like to explore. I'm generally interested in the next cool big thing in AI. And yeah, sometimes it happens actually quite a lot that I write an article for InfoQ, and it doesn't get a lot of views or readers, but then 2 years later, suddenly that topic blows up. Yeah. And InfoQ is always quite happy that I wrote about it when it wasn't popular yet. So I always feel appreciated, despite my content not getting a lot of views.
Yeah, this is what you manage inventories, early things, similar to stuff that I write about cloud technology that some point get picked up or not. So it focuses on what you just said, but it's definitely for early enterprise adoption. Something about the trend reports?
Yeah, so they also have trend reports. So the trend reports are when the editors for a certain queue get together and say, hey, what's hot, what's not in this technology, what's up and coming, what do we see? Generally, this is a report which also goes together with the podcast where people are discussing that. Yeah, it's always fun to participate.
And there's trend reports about architecture, cloud and DevOps, AI and ML, and I even think cultural mapping. So there's similar type of, trend reports, just not anything, one thing particular, but a pretty broad spectrum of trend reports, what's going on, pretty aligned with what you see and hear on these conferences.
Yeah, and again, it's a forcing function, right? Because then once a year, someone comes to me and asks me, hey, Roland, what's the next big thing in AI? I'm like, what is the next big thing in machine learning? It really forces you to think about what have I been working on this year, what has accelerated my work, what do I now see everybody is doing. It forces you to think about it, and that I think makes you like a better overall developer. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of what you said. So
yeah, you will see. Daniel will tell all about this tomorrow. Don't miss that.
Yeah, a lot of the readers are architects.
Yep.
So core values.
Yeah, in terms of core values, one thing I really like about InfoQ is that there's a lot of tech websites which write, in my opinion, clickbaity content, have extremely long articles, not really saying anything. InfoQ is a bit different in that they want to be information Robin Hoods. That means that they take the knowledge which like the information rich have and then distribute it over everybody. They really want the best articles, not necessarily the first articles. So often the best articles we publish, I think, are the ones where we publish it a week after something happened. But then we have the really in-depth knowledge about it, and someone like an InfoQ editor spent a week learning about everything there is for this technology. And that's also content I like to write. Like, I'm not interested in clicks. I'm interested in adding value later rather than sooner.
Yeah, that's the same for me, and it just helps me a lot in my career too, doing it this way. It makes me also a better technologist, because predominantly I work in Microsoft Tech, but then again, sometimes I have to relate or review or say what the other cloud vendors do, and I usually can tend to even answer those questions even better than the Microsoft people that are like, oh, we don't know what happens in those other, hyperscalers. Well, I know it, so it's pretty cool that I do. So.
Yeah. Cool. Now the question, of course, you're all having: how do I sign up?
Exactly.
I think there's following options. There's a couple of InfoQ editors here in the room, and actually after this session, everyone is going to come here and
cookies
for a group photo. Yeah. So everyone who approaches us right now gets a cookie. Also, if you want to just get a cookie and run, it's fine.
Yeah, that's fine too.
But yeah, so you can approach us. There's also a couple of other InfoQ editors. You can ask them about their experience. Ask them if what we are saying is true. If you are still thinking about what you want, you can add us on LinkedIn, ask us more personal questions. I think in general, starting writing at InfoQ can be a bit daunting because they immediately want you to write a lot. You get a lot of feedback. I think an easy way to get started is writing a long form article. I create this tiny URL which gives you more information. And you can also go to the second tiny URL where it says what you need to do to become an editor. Any tips from you there?
No, yeah, that's what you say. Either can do the long form article, which is less, with time frames. But yeah, if you do the news item stuff that you and I do, a podcast, then yeah, there is kind of a bit of a push there, or you at least have to write once a week. So yeah, you really have to have the stomach for that and the perseverance to do that. But if you do, yeah, there's a lot of rewards which we talked about. So yeah, sign up and join, I would say.
Cool.
And, yeah, I hope you liked our presentation. We haven't really rehearsed it because we work we're both Dutch. You live in London, I live in the Netherlands. But hey, this is our first talk. I think it went pretty well. It's a good dry run. We'll definitely do it again in London next year. So hey.
We're doing the retrospective during the talk.
Yes.
No, but so in general, I think with the editors, we were having lunch before, and we were saying, okay, how many people are going to show up? Someone guessed 5, someone guessed 20. I think there's more people than we expected.
It's over 50, so hey, this is cool.
One thing I'm really wondering is what you were here for. So if you are one of these people who doesn't want to give feedback and want to run out the door as fast as possible, especially because you're like, oh, I didn't want this, please come to us and say, oh, I was actually expecting something different, or I was expecting more something like this. We want to start doing these sessions at more InfoQ or QCon conferences. So please tell us what you're here for and what you like and what you don't like, and get a cookie. Yeah, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
Any questions? We will throw you a cookie if you ask one. I think the pressure of having to catch a cookie is too high. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of the conference.